Dana here, and I am back with another video. Today I want to talk about character development. I wanted to just kind of give a few tips as to what I think makes a good protagonist and what makes a good antagonist. When you're starting off with your story, you want to come up with an idea for a character who's obviously believable, relatable, and usually your character is a lot better at certain things than you are. So depending on the genre you're writing, you're going to give them traits that you yourself and probably your friends and people you know don't possess. So let's say, for example, you're writing a romance story and you have your heroine, probably really young, really beautiful. She's got a situation, obviously, that she's got to get out of, but I mean, that's a given. She meets a very handsome man and falls in love, and there's all of this drama and whatever. This stuff is way bigger than real life. Conversely, your antagonist probably is larger than life too. He or she has evil streak, malicious intent, all of these sorts of things that make a really good villain. Now, if you're looking for a way to write a believable character, my suggestion is to think to your friends. Obviously, you are friends with people who have traits that you find appealing, and you yourself probably have these traits in common with them. I mean, that's why you get along, usually. So, sit down and make a list of the things that make you likable to your friends and what you admire about your friends. And that's usually a pretty good start to building a likable, strong protagonist, whether they're male or female. Next, draw another column or whatever you're doing, and come up with a list of things that you don't like. So why are there certain people you're not friends with? What really irks you about these people? Is it that they are too needy? Is it that they come off as like snobby or know-it-all? Or is it because they're too blunt and they don't know when to quit? You know, these sorts of things would actually make good traits. They would make first of all, they would make good flaws in some of your characters, but they would also make good traits in an antagonist. In your romance story, you've got another woman who wants to steal this man away, and she's too nosy, and maybe she throws herself at him, and maybe she's like really needy. So that's pretty obvious, right? So you make a list of traits that are good and a list of traits that are bad. You give your good characters some flaws, and you give your bad characters some strengths. That is key to building a believable character. You don't want to have a two-dimensional character. If your character's only flaw is she's too nice and people walk on her, that's not a very strong flaw. That's actually kind of more like when you go into a job interview, they ask you what your biggest weakness is, and you say, sometimes I'm so focused on details that I hand in assignments late. In my opinion, that is not really a real flaw. That's kind of like humble bragging. Alright, so give your character a real flaw. Moving on to an example of a strength for your antagonist, I would say, you know, he's spiteful, he's jealous, and he doesn't like his friend hooking up with this girl, so he's kind of trying to get the bromance back, and he's like, let's go out for beers, let's go to the strip club, you know, whatever. This is kind of cheesy, but bear with me. You obviously will get the point of what I'm trying to say. So when he asks his friend to go out with him and to spend more time with him, he's kind of putting a strain on the relationship. And he's not really evil, he just wants his friend back. He's not doing it because he wants to get with the girl and hurt his friend. Or maybe he is. He's having problems accepting the fact that life is changing and his friend is moving on. That's a real flaw. You know, he doesn't want to accept that he is trying to cling to the past, and that's a flaw we can all relate to. Now, when you've built your character and you have a list of strengths and flaws, I think it's a good idea to go through things that they would do to maybe diffuse a tough situation, things that they would do to show that they love somebody, or ways that they would use language to persuade somebody to do something or talk somebody down out of something. These types of things can really build consistency in your character without being super obvious and driving home the point that she is just so in love with this guy, she is just so desperate to be with this guy. Well, how would you show that without being like, she literally threw herself at him, he was so hot? You could say she was thoughtful. He mentioned one time that he really liked curry, and so she took him to a place where she knew that they had really great curry, and he realized then that she really cared about him, that she was a thoughtful person. Conversely, If she was a really needy person, you might say something like controlling. You know, if she's needy to a point where she is really making an impact on their life and threatening the relationship, she might text him 100 times while he's out with his friends. She might really struggle with the idea that he has friends other than her or wants to spend time with other people. So she might stalk him, drive by while he's out with somebody, suspecting that he's cheating. Maybe she even hires a private investigator. Make a list of things that your character would do in different situations. Use different kinds of words to describe them. Not just their physical attributes, not just generic traits, but really think of, like, throw a situation out there and think of how your character would react in that situation. There's my cat. Here she is. She wants you to say hi. Say hi, Ume. I don't know what she sees up there. There's nothing there. Anyway, finally, after you've come up with strengths, weaknesses, and a list of things that your character might do in different tough situations, then really you've done a lot of the groundwork for building your character. Finally, I would suggest that it is important to build out a backstory for your character. Too many people go into fiction writing and they say, oh, well, when she was a kid she was made fun of a lot, so now she doesn't know how to make friends because she's afraid that people will make fun of her. Okay, well, that's a good start, but you know, what was her family life like? Did she maybe tell her mom that she was being made fun of and her mom completely ignored her? Did he ask a girl out on a date and she said yes and then only went out with him so that she could make fun of him or laugh at him or tell her friends how pathetic he was? You know, these kinds of situations really affect a person, and they influence how a person will interact with others for a long time. So think about events that happened when they were little, their family life, their dating life, their relationships with their friends, their hobbies. These kinds of things will all affect how a person is formed and is unique. When you build a character, you want them to have everything: flaws, strengths, hobbies, hang-ups, pet peeves, everything you would see in a real person. And before I finish, I will mention that obviously if you are writing fantasy, especially high fantasy or something, your characters are going to be a little bit more black and white. Especially if you're going with the Tolkien-esque lore and everything, and you have, your different races, the classic good versus evil motif going in your story. I would still say that despite the fact that there might be an all-seeing, all-knowing evil entity that is ready to possess people's minds or, threaten the kingdoms or something, you can still make it so that there are people who fight against him, even from his own army. You can make it so there's betrayal, so that there's intrigue, really more dynamics, more levels than just this guy has an army and he sends it out into the world and we must fight and defeat the evil. If this shakes, it's because the cat is jumping all over things that are kind of like up above the camera that you can't see, so I'm sorry. So, to recap, we build flaws and strengths into all of our characters, not just the good characters, but also the bad characters. We come up with a list of different situations that they might be in that'll really bring out the strongest parts of their personalities, whether that's strengths or flaws. Come up with a list of words that describe them, and not just physical traits, and not just bland, she's nice, or he's a really intelligent prodigy. No, you need things that are more in-depth than that, and explain why. What are some words that you would actually use to describe his or her actions in the story, his or her thoughts in the story? Lastly, even if you are writing pretty strict genre fiction with hard set rules that's been around for a long time and people really expect a certain thing, there are still ways that you can make your characters unique and believable. You just have to come up with a way that you can weave those flaws and weave that depth into a world that already kind of has laws set. Just think of it as a formula, but you can solve for X in a number of different ways. You'll still get the same outcome. And then finally, making that believable past for your character, and not just, one or two isolated events, but really dig deep into their psyche and what would make them tick the way that they do now. Alright, so if you enjoyed what I had to say, subscribe. I'll also link a couple of my blog articles that talk about developing characters and You can take or leave my advice, but I think that there are some really important things if you are into writing character-driven stories and really want to carve out a unique character that your readers will remember for a long time to come. I always promise cats. So, here's Ume again. I know you saw her earlier. Say bye, Ooms. Okay. I'm gonna go find Momo. And I found Momo, but she's sleepy. He doesn't want to say hi. Why are you so grumpy? Alright everyone, I will see you next time, and thanks for watching.